Good evening, everyone. Welcome to my first video of the year 2023. It's been over a week now since I did my last one. And this one is going to be a little heavy if you're a sports fan. And I consider myself a nominal sports fan. I used to be much more of a sports fan than I am lately. I'm wearing my Green Bay Packers jersey. If I had to pick a team, that's my favorite team. That would be it. But I follow it so little now. Aside from Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb, I couldn't even name another player on what is supposedly my favorite team. Used to follow it a lot more closely. So it's Gordon Causey, aka Gordy Canuck, on Twitter, aka Grow a Set on Reddit. If you follow me there, you're welcome to like and subscribe to these videos if you want to hear what I'm talking about. And I'm a little late to the game in terms of this one. There are tons of videos out there already about what happened. Monday Night Football, Buffalo Bills versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Apparently a very significant game that had playoff implications, although I don't know what they were. I believe Buffalo's leading the NFC East. I don't know how Cincinnati's doing, but I think both teams are in the mix for the postseason. And as I understand it, there were playoff implications, at least in terms of seedings. I don't know. The game was significant from what I understand. And as everyone who's not living under a rock, whether you're watching the game or not, you've heard young man Damar Hamlin, safety with the Buffalo Bills, collapsed on the field after a hit. He took someone down and fell to the ground with the player, then popped back up, adjusted his helmet, and face planted. And apparently suffered a cardiac arrest, which, from what I understand, is not to be confused with a heart attack. Non-expert, not going to be offering any medical advice or anything, just commenting on what happened. I titled this something to the effect of, why was the game suspended? And someone might infer that I think the game should have gone on. No, I'm 100% okay, fine, cancel the game. Who cares? Football, who cares? Baseball, basketball, hockey. I mean, when there's life, someone's life's at stake, a sports contest of any description is meaningless. However, it's, in terms of the NFL, it is incredibly unprecedented that they would stop the game. This is the first. I did some checking. According to CBS Sports, this is the only time in NFL history that a game has ever started and then not been completed. I believe for any reason. There have been games canceled before, but not once they've started, they always finish. And that includes, I did some checking back, there was a wide receiver with the Detroit Lions football team who actually suffered a heart attack on the field and died. That was on October 24, 1971. They completed that game. Player was taken off the field, died afterward, but the game went on. There was another game that I read about, a guy named Darryl Stingley, August 12th, 1978, a preseason game, so a game that had absolutely no bearing whatsoever, and he was left quadriplegic after a rather violent hit, taken off in the stretcher. Preseason game, and they finished the game. So in that context, when you read that the NFL, the league itself, the officials on the field, and apparently the networks, they all wanted the game to continue. but it was reportedly the players and the coaches were unwilling to continue playing. So if you look back at the history of the NFL, and I went and I looked, and you can find a video here on YouTube of career-ending injuries where players are taken off the field in stretchers after horrific hits, often after a punt return, where a player, where the punt receiver does not signal for a fair catch and then just gets absolutely creamed and is taken off the field in the stretcher. You know, mentioned that wasn't the case with this Darryl Stingley guy. I think I believe he was a wide receiver who caught a pass and then was hit helmet to shoulder and was left paralyzed, quadriplegic. Apparently was able to gain enough function in one of his hands to operate his wheelchair, but he was basically a quadriplegic for the remainder of his life. He died prematurely. He died at 55. But the games always continued. But this time in the year 2023, all of a sudden, player suffers a catastrophic health event and the game is stopped and they won't play it. They didn't play it. And again, the reason was because the coaches and the players, from what I understand on both sides, on both teams, they did not want to keep playing. And why is it different now than in any time previous? Because again, this has happened before and games never stopped. And I'm going to suggest the reason, what I believe is the reason, not an expert opinion. Okay. I know that there was a YouTube sports doctor who apparently has tens, hundreds of thousands of followers on his YouTube channel. He went and did a YouTube video within an hour or two, within hours anyway, of the hit. And based on what he had seen in the video, he was proclaiming a diagnosis. Didn't know that doctors just needed a video of an event to tell you what had happened. For myself, why did Damar Hamlin, why does his heart stop beating? I have no idea. I have my suspicions that it could be related to the jab. That's a suspicion. It's not an expert view. It's just a suspicion from a non-expert. And that's why I think the game was stopped, is because I think I'm willing to entertain the possibility, and I would wager that a good number of the players on both sides of the field, on both sides of the ball, both on the Bengals and on the Bills, I would wager that a good number of the players and coaches, that they were thinking the exact same thing that I'm thinking. That could it be a result? And the horribly done, I don't think it's a good documentary film, but Stu Peters put out it's being called a documentary, so I'll call it a documentary. I consider it a very poorly researched and a very ham-fisted documentary, but most have heard of it. Many have seen it. And if you haven't seen it, you likely know what it's about. It's called Died Suddenly, and it puts forth the theory very strongly, saying that there is a definitive cause and effect relationship between the jabs and the explosion of sudden deaths that we're seeing. I say it's a poorly done documentary because in that film, they showed a number of videos, short videos of athletes collapsing on the field, the court, and some of them were absolutely in no way possibly related to the jabs. And that's a kind of, when you're doing a documentary, you better fact check things 6 ways to Sunday before you put it out there. And I think that was done on purpose. And I think they did it in that way so that it could be easily shot down. Most people are not critical thinkers. They're either going to accept it wholeheartedly or reject it wholeheartedly. And if there are enough questionable assertions, if there are enough questionable videos, if there are things that can be easily refuted, then the entire thing gets thrown into the trash for a large segment of the population. And so I almost view it as having been done on purpose. But the simple fact of the matter is we're reading about these things every day now. If I just go onto my timeline over on Facebook, and if you want to follow me there, Gordon Causey, Cawsey, even friend me up. I still have some room, as it were. But Ashari Hughes, 16-year-old girl, just died this past week playing flag football. Then there was another former football player, 25, 26 years of age, who died suddenly in Passaic, New Jersey, around the corner from where I spent 5 years growing up in Glen Rock. Passaic is right next to New York City, and a very young firefighter passed away. I'm just scrolling through. There's in the Bahamas, an 18-year-old girl was out on the basketball court, died suddenly. Kids dying suddenly, a 16-year-old hockey player dying suddenly, and you're seeing this over and over and over and over again. Now, did this kind of thing happen in years previous? Is this something brand new to 2022, 2023? I don't think so. I think there have been sudden tragic deaths that have happened before, even among professional athletes. But is it happening to a greater degree now than it ever has before? I believe so. West Germany has just put out a report, according to the insurance industry, have seen something like a 16% increase in unexplained sudden deaths. They happened before, but now they're just happening at significantly higher rates than they've ever happened before. And why? We're seeing all kinds of reports that are blaming climate change, that are blaming anxiety, that are blaming artificial. I saw one on saying artificial sweeteners. And these are all things that have been around. Has something suddenly changed in 2022 that have seen this explosion? And that's why I think the game was canceled, because the players, like myself, like you, if you're watching this, are well aware of the fact that there has been a significant increase in the number of people we're seeing reported on just dying suddenly, no cause given, or heart attacks and cardiac arrests and sad sudden arrhythmia, death syndrome, all these different reasons. What do they point back to? I work in a large retail setting. I see people every day. Just within the last 3-4 days, was talking to a gentleman limping behind his cart, pushing a cart. Asked him how he was, and he said, he had only just gotten out of the hospital. He'd been in hospital for almost 2 weeks with sepsis, sepsis, which I've heard of. But I said to him, I don't know much about sepsis. Isn't it like a blood infection or something? He said, yeah, basically it's poison blood. You've got some type of infection in your blood. And I asked him, what was the cause? Was it surgery? Is that like come after having surgery or something? He said, doctors have no idea what caused it. No idea. And eventually he did relay the fact that he's on number 5 and that he has had people tell him they think that's probably the reason, and he doesn't dismiss the possibility himself. And it'll bring me to the point that I'll conclude this video with, and that's confidence in the authorities, in our institutions. I kind of refer to it as the superstructure of society. It's what holds everything up. People have, by and large, the majority of people, I will say, have some degree of faith. High, low, medium, some degree of faith in our political system. Now, the person might be, in the Canadian context, some may like the Liberals and hate the Conservatives. Some may like the Conservatives and hate the Liberals. Either way, but they have some degree of trust in the integrity of the political system. They have a certain degree of trust and faith in the media, in the reporting that takes place, in our judicial, in our legal system. And if that gets eroded, if that gets taken away, forget eroded, if it's removed, I view it as somewhat being the superstructure that holds the building that is, to extend this metaphor, picturing our society or our societies as being a building or buildings. And if you blow out the superstructure, the building collapses. It's when they take down a building. They lay charges on all the key supporting structures within a building. They pour over the blueprints. They identify all the key points that hold the building up, and then they install explosives, and with one massive explosion, they blow out the superstructure, and the building collapses in on itself. And the entire narrative around safe and effective, and that these jabs are designed to, improve health and to protect human life. That's a key element holding up this superstructure. Right now, so many doctors are losing their licenses, losing their livelihoods when they go off script. When they, one name I've mentioned frequently is a Dr. Francis Christian, but he's got to be 100 plus in Canada alone. Doctors who have come forward who are far more eminently qualified than I am. Dr. Francis Christian was a teaching surgeon with the University of Saskatchewan. And he went public with his view that specifically for younger people, like for kids, 12-year-olds, that the squeeze isn't worth the juice, that the risk of myocarditis, pericarditis, and other, supposedly rare adverse events, that they're greater than the risk COVID poses. And so he went public with that view, and they took away his privileges at the University of Saskatchewan Hospital, where he acted as a teaching physician or surgeon, meaning a surgeon who would teach other surgeons how to perform surgery. And he was the editor of a medical journal, I believe a co-editor. Scary world when you can't science is all about questioning. It's all about investigation, and it never stops. I've said before in a previous video, when you're dealing with settled science, people love to say the science is settled. Very rarely is that true. The freezing point of water, yeah, the science has settled on that. The freezing point of water is 0 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. It doesn't change. And that was the freezing point 1,000 years ago. It's the freezing point now. It'll be the freezing point in 1,000 years. It doesn't change. You know, how many times? How long does it take the Earth to complete its orbit around the sun? 365 and a quarter days, plus I think a few seconds, which are adjusted for periodically. But that's settled. But settled science otherwise, when there was a drug, I'd invite you to look it up, Bextra, Bextra, came onto the market in the year 2000, approved as a safe and effective anti-inflammatory drug. And it was on the market from 2000 to 2005. Why was it taken off the market? I'll invite you to look that up. What they believed to be true in 2000, by 2005, they proved that it was untrue. It wasn't settled. Science is rarely settled. An even more heinous example is thalidomide. And that was in, I believe, the 1950s that thalidomide was approved as a safe and effective treatment for nausea. And I think it was on the market for in around 5 years before they found out the horrendous birth defects that it was directly causing. So the science is settled. Science hasn't figured out a way to speed up time. We haven't developed warp speed technology. We can't bend space and time. We can't go into the future and see what's happening. When the jabs first came out, first authorized in Canada and in the US, in the United States, they called it an emergency use authorization, EUA. In Canada, the term Health Canada used was an interim authorization. When those authorizations came out, I was skeptical. I guess you would say hesitant is the word everyone uses. Okay, fine. Sure, hesitant on steroids because of the sheer speed at which it had supposedly been done in a few short months. And they hadn't done a separate standalone safety trial. Hadn't done a standalone phase 1 safety trial. And so at that point, my attitude was, well, okay, I'm going to wait for at least a couple of years. I want to have firsthand accounts from people I know who've taken it and know that they're all still well and healthy and good to go, no issues. And just in my own small, very limited sphere, a former colleague, I have 2 former colleagues, military colleagues who have passed, a family member, young, fit, healthy, 6 foot tall, 180 pounds. I'm shorter and heavier. I'm 5'11", 215, 220. A guy younger than me and thinner than me, who eats healthier than I do, who doesn't smoke like I do. And he had a heart attack. Thankfully, he survived. Local counselor in my hometown, massive heart attack. Strokes, I don't know how many I'm up to now. 4 anyway, maybe more, including 2 deaths. And it's just too many. Now, am I going to say that every single adverse event that I've heard reported, that I have firsthand knowledge of, that they're all related? I doubt it. I doubt they're all related. But equally, do I think none of them are related? I think some are. Absolutely. And so that's why, NFL game. Will we see this again? I mean, we're reading about it every day about, 16-year-old hockey player in Minnesota dying suddenly, firefighters It's not just NFL football players, although there have been other NFL football players who've had strokes and blood clots this year. Are we going to see another on-field event similar to this? I will not be surprised. We have the sport that I think puts the most strain on the heart is probably soccer, because I'm no soccer player, never played in any competitive situation, but I've played games of soccer before. And you're running constantly in that game. I think it's 90 minutes long, 2 45-minute halves at the professional level, and you're constantly moving. Sports like football is short durations with good long breaks in between. Hockey players are out for 45 seconds, a minute and a half long shift, and then they sit for 3, 4, 5 minutes. Basketball, that a game I played a lot, you can take time off. You can cheat on offense. If you see a fast break developing, you can join it, or you can hang back and say, okay, I'll let you guys push it up the court. I'm taking this one off. You can play zone defense, and basically you're guarding an area, so you're not chasing all over the place. But professional athletes do put a lot of strain on their heart. I think soccer is the one that puts the most sustained pressure on the heart for the longest period of time, 90 minutes. But that's non-expert views, not offering medical advice to anyone. Do what they tell you. And then maybe 5 years from now, find out, oh, well, we got it wrong. Thalidomide isn't safe and effective. Bextra isn't safe and effective. Maybe we'll find out some other things aren't safe and effective. It's happened before. So God bless. Welcome to 2023. I don't watch football. I don't have television in the house, so I won't be watching any of the games. But if something like this happens, no doubt I'll hear about it. So anyway, thank you for watching. I noticed I had a couple people coming in and out. Anytime anyone comes on, if they want to say hi, if you want to ask a question, leave a comment. Tell me you think I'm right. Tell me you think I'm completely out to lunch. Either way, all is good. And again, if you want to subscribe, somewhere down there is a subscribe button. I've kept this one under 30 minutes. That's doing well for me. I tend to rattle on too much. So happy 2023, everyone. And one thing I want to say that's really, I forgot to mention, and this is good to read. This gentleman, Damar Hamlin, has apparently, all the reporting is saying that he has regained consciousness in the University of Cincinnati Medical Center, where he's receiving treatment. And a story came out that a bedside nurse was there, and he was unable to talk because I think he's on a tracheotomy or a ventilator or something like that, so it restricts his ability to talk. So the story is he asked for some writing material, and his first thing that he wrote down, 3 words: did we win? And that speaks to, even guy collapsed, and from what I understand was clinically dead on at least once and maybe twice, had to be revived. His heart had completely stopped. And his first question was, reportedly, did we win? So that tells you, in these football games, never guys get carted off the field as quadriplegics. Chuck Hughes dies during a football game, and they finished the games. They even finished a preseason game. The players in the NFL and hockey and basketball and baseball, athletes know. And that's, I believe, without a doubt in my mind, that's why they had to suspend the game. The league wanted it to go on. TV wanted it to go on. The game's officials wanted to go on, but the coaches and players said, "No, this is too freaky." 95% of us have had the same that this guy just had. We're not continuing. Anyway, God bless, and we'll talk to you again in a few days. Night.